The wind cut through the narrow alleys of the bazaar, carrying the smell of roasted corn and dusty spices, but none of it touched her empty stomach. She pulled her thin shawl tighter around her shoulders, though it did little to keep the cold from biting at her skin. Her fingers curled protectively around the small velvet pouch hidden in her palm. It felt too light for something that meant everything to her, the last piece of her mother she still carried. She kept replaying her sister's weak voice from that morning, barely a whisper, asking if there would be food today. The memory scraped at her heart. No child should sound that hopeless. That was the moment she knew she had no choice. She had walked the long way to the bazaar, past the pharmacy where she couldn't afford medicine, past the bakery where the warm scent of bread nearly broke her resolve. Finally, she reached the corner where desperate people came to sell desperate things. She looked at the pouch again, breathing shakily. "Forgive me, Mama," she whispered. "Just this once." Taking a trembling step forward, she lifted her chin and waited for someone to notice her, praying the sacrifice would be enough to keep her sister alive another day. A low hum rippled through the bazaar as the black SUV eased to a stop near her corner. People instinctively stepped back, curiosity mixing with caution. Vehicles like that didn't belong in places where people bargained over a few rupees of tomatoes. She felt her breath hitch as the door opened and the man stepped out. He wasn't surrounded by guards or assistants like the wealthy men she occasionally saw on the main road. He moved quietly, almost unnoticed, except for the way the vendor beside her straightened up immediately, eyes widening with recognition. The man wore a plain gray sweater, dark jeans, and a watch so simple it seemed out of place on someone so composed. But his posture, his steady steps, the way he scanned the street, it spoke of someone used to making decisions that changed lives. She lowered her gaze automatically, clutching the pouch tighter. Men like him didn't look at girls like her. They passed by without seeing the hunger, the struggle, the silent pleas. Still, she forced herself to raise her arm, revealing the tiny locket resting in her palm before she lost her courage. For a moment, she expected him to walk past like everyone else. Instead, he stopped. His shadow fell over her, gentle but impossible to ignore, and when she finally dared to look up, his eyes weren't cold or condescending. They were curious, almost human. Her hands trembled as she opened the velvet pouch, revealing the delicate gold locket. She pressed it into the air between them, fingers shaking so violently that the chain rattled like a small bell. "Please, I'll take whatever you can give," she whispered, voice cracking under the weight of hunger, fear, and exhaustion. Her eyes refused to leave his. She needed him to see the truth of her desperation. The billionaire leaned closer, tilting the locket in the sunlight, revealing the tiny engraved heart inside, the two intertwined initials. It was exquisite in its simplicity, but it was not wealth to someone like him. He examined it carefully, almost as if he could read the story hidden in the tiny grooves, sensing the love and sacrifice it carried. He didn't reach for a wallet. He didn't even offer a coin. "Food," she said quickly, anticipating rejection. "Just enough for me and my sister. That's all." Her throat burned as she swallowed. He paused, studying her with a look that seemed too intense for the moment, too knowing for a stranger. Most people who approached him wanted money, power, or opportunity, but she had offered the one thing that could never be replaced, and only for another's. Sake. The realization struck him silently, leaving him momentarily speechless. Then, softly, he said, "Come with me." She hesitated, fear and disbelief warring in her chest, but something in his steady gaze told her it was safe to follow. She tucked the velvet pouch close to her, half expecting it to vanish the moment she turned her back. He led her through winding streets to a quiet cafe tucked between a flower shop and a bookstore, far from the bustle of the bazaar. The warmth hit her like a wave, and for a moment she shivered from relief instead of cold. The table was already set with plates of steaming food, far more than she had seen in weeks. She sank into the chair, hesitant, as if touching the food might make it disappear. The first spoonful burned away the emptiness in her stomach, and then the second, and soon she was eating as if the world depended on it. The billionaire watched silently, patient and unintrusive, letting her fill the void before speaking. When she finally slowed, embarrassed, he asked her story. Her words tumbled out. The debts, the illness of her sister, the jobs lost, the nights spent hungry. He listened, unflinching, absorbing the truth of her sacrifice. Finally, He leaned back, astonishment and admiration mingling in his eyes. "Keep your locket," he said quietly. "And tomorrow, come to my office. You will never have to sell anything again." Her heart leapt. Hope, long forgotten, sparked to life.